The second thing is going to be when you're selecting a medical school, the entry requirement. All right. So when it comes to entry requirement in Sri Lanka, most of the time we are very familiar with the local A levels and then the London A levels. When it comes to London A levels, you have Edexcel and Cambridge, so both are like equally same, and Sri Lankan Medical Council has their entry requirement category. That is, this entry requirement came into picture from 2010 onwards. So when I went to the med school in 2007, there was no regulation as such. So they didn't have a list of universities which you can go or which you cannot, or they didn't have a regulation like that. From 2010 onwards, they came up with a regulation 2Cs and 1D for London A levels. If you're offering subjects should be biology, physics or chemistry. So before, till last year or year before, even if you do physics or mathematics, either of it shouldn't be a problem. But at the moment, it is definitely physics, not mathematics. So if you have done biology, chemistry and mathematics, then you won't get the accreditation, you won't get the registration in Sri Lankan Medical Council upon completion of your medical degree. So for advanced levels, if your dream is to go abroad, study medicine, come back to Sri Lanka, register yourself. If you want to stick to Sri Lankan Medical Council regulation, then you have to make sure you have 2Cs and 1D, that is D for dogs, so 2Cs and 1D. So that is, offering subject should be biology, physics and chemistry in one sitting. Okay, or any equivalent qualification, they say it can be a +2, then you need to go and get it approved by the foreign ministry and the education ministry, and then you have to make sure the Sri Lankan Medical Council will approve the program you have done. All right. So any pre-medicine programs, okay, any pre-medicine programs are not allowed or not accepted by Sri Lankan Medical Council. You need to understand that. So clearly, no pre-medical programs are accepted by Sri Lankan Medical Council. It's definitely 2Cs and 1D or 2Cs and 1S if you are a local A-level student. Again, the offering subjects are biology, physics and chemistry. Local A-level students will not have a problem because we don't have a curriculum saying we can choose whether either physics or mathematics. It is either always bio, physics and chemistry. So local A-levels means it's 2Cs, 2 credits and 1 simple pass. London's the same results, 2 credits and 1 simple pass for biophysics and chemistry. That's the entry requirement, the minimum entry requirement Sri Lankan Medical Council wants you to have. But this entry requirement can change from country to country. For an example, if you look at India, they want you to have the +2 and then you have to sit for a NEET exam, the exam what they conduct in India. The same way if you're looking at Malaysia, they want you to have minimum entry requirement of 3 Bs for you to enter into one of the medical schools. So likewise, according to the country you're planning to departure or planning to go and study medicine might differ, as in the entry requirement will differ from country to country. You need to have an understanding on that too. So you need to check on that before applying to a medical school, and you have to make sure you have the topmost or the highest scores to apply for these. Apart from this entry requirement, certain countries will have some additional entrance exam as well. Now, Sri Lankan Medical Council will be okay with 2Cs and 1D, but for an example, if you're going to one of the universities in Australia, the entry requirement might change annually, but then again, A stars and 2As might be the requirement. Even for local A levels, if they want you to have 3 As to apply to one of the Australian universities if you're going for direct medicine. UK the same, US the same, but US system might be little different. There are programs in UK, US and Australia where you do a bachelor's in science and then you do an exam in between. It can be GAMSAT or MCAT or whatever it is. So do an exam in between and then you go into 4 years of MD. So that there are programs like that too. But unlikely when there is a graduate entry pathway, a student would be successful or succeeded. I have not seen within my experience, of course, I have not seen a student who have had a graduate entry pathway and who completed medicine, who's practicing medicine in Sri Lanka. Maybe there are, but then again, very few for sure. So you need to be very careful if you're selecting a medical school through a graduate entry pathway, or you're going to go directly to a med school and you're going to complete and say, okay, all 5 years, all 6 years I've studied and I have a medical degree at the moment. Otherwise, if it is a graduate entry pathway, the problem can be you do a bachelor's, you fail the in-between exam, or you don't score sufficient score in your bachelor's, you don't have a first class, or you don't maintain a high GPA, you might not be able to fulfill your medical dream. So entry requirement plays the second role. So the first thing we spoke about the ranking and the recognition. Second thing we spoke about the entry requirement. The third thing is going to be your budgets. All right, so this is one of the most important thing, and with the current situation in Sri Lanka, how do you make your payments to the university? All the charges are in dollars. So for education at the moment, we don't have any restrictions as such. So if you're a student or if you're planning to go abroad and study medicine or any other program, so we don't have very strict regulations and restrictions. So the country will allow you to make those payments to the university directly. So shouldn't be a problem with the help of the university itself. So you will not have that issue. But then again, with the dollar rates, looking at the faculties, there are universities you can complete an annual annually your fee can be $5,000, as in US dollars I'm referring to, so approximately $1 million, a little more than $1 million. And whereas there are universities you can look at approximately $75,000 per annum as well, so that you're talking about approximately 15 to 16 million rupees if I'm not mistaken. So with the current dollar rate, about 203 rupees. So there are universities in these two categories. So there are lower end and a higher end. So this doesn't mean you pay more that you go to a good university and you pay less you go to a bad university. You don't categorize it in that way. Like I told you, the very first important thing you looked at is going to be your ranking and recognition, and if you are if you are fit to go to that university with your results and your entry requirement, then you can get into the med school, shouldn't be a problem. And then you look at the financial burden, or when you discuss with your parents, and parents can decide whether it's affordable. Is it going to be I'm going to pull out a bank loan from 30 onwards, or will I be able to do that or not? So plan it accordingly, because and also when it comes to medical school annual course fee, you have to understand it's not just the annual course fee only. There are additional expenses as well. For an example, it can be your hostel fee, then your daily expenses and monthly expenses, your transportation, and then you're back and forth, you're studying in a foreign country. So if you're planning to come back to Sri Lanka for your vacation, so that cost, all that included. So if you talk about a university which is around $5,000 capacity, so that is for 5 years or 6 years, it can be around 5.5 or 6 million rupees. And apart from that, you need to look at another 4 to 5 million rupees additional cost to complete the entire program. So always you have a wrong impression or understanding the course fee is $5,000 or $4,000 or $3,000, which doesn't mean that into 6 years is going to fulfill your medical dream. It doesn't work like that. So plan your accounts properly, as in the budgets accordingly. Yearly it can be plus or minus 5-10% can increase, because you don't pay 6 years of your course fee upfront to a faculty. It doesn't work like that when it comes to medicine. So you pay year by year, because you don't know who guarantees that you will get through your first year to pay for the second year upfront. Understand? That makes sense, right? So that way what you can do is so you have a proper financial planning, and always remember, it's more than where you study medicine, it's about how you study medicine, end of the day. So hope to see you at the next episode with more information and more insightful information about studying abroad medicine.